Wings and L.A. Law return next Thursday with all new episodes. Now stay tuned for David Letterman's 10th anniversary special.
Believe me, I'm just as sick as you are about preempting L.A. Law.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
His paintings redefined comic book heroes. His vision inspired a generation. The Legend of Kingdom Come is the definitive documentary on Alex Ross, known as the Norman Rockwell of comics.
It almost looked like Renaissance paintings, except for superheroes.
He makes them look like Olympian gods.
We go behind the scenes of his definitive graphic novel, Kingdom Come, now on Blu-ray, packed with exclusive interviews and unseen artwork. Order today at legendofkingdomcome.com.
Thanks, John. It's good to see you.
Klaus Janson, welcome back to Word Balloon. It's great to see you. Thank you very much for coming back and having a new conversation with me today.
It's a pleasure, John, really. I'm looking forward to it.
You got a big month. It's already started. You've got a big museum showing, a gallery showing happening in New York. Give us the details.
It's a gallery showing. It's an exhibition. The VIP party was Wednesday, and then it opened to the public yesterday. And as you can hear, I have a cold, just running around in the rain, just a little bit too much. But the exhibit really turned out well. It's at the Philippe Le Bon Gallery, which is on 24th Street in the Chelsea section of New York. And it's about 100 pieces of original art just hanging on the wall, which is kind of mind-blowing, for me to walk into that space and see all these pages that I've squirreled away over the years and refused to give up. So it's been a wonderful experience. It's been exciting, and I feel the love in the room, and that can't be bad.
This is also the 40th anniversary this year of Dark Knight Returns, and you were such a big part of that. Are there Dark Knight pages part of the gallery showing?
No, I have. And people ask me all the time, but I have no Dark Knight pages. Yeah, but going out to I think Frank and I went to Comics Pro. I think it was just a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and we had a blast. We absolutely had a great time. The retailers were amazing. Being able to talk about Dark Knight was amazing. And Frank and I have a we're in a really good space. And Frank has suggested that we go on a comedy tour together because we just joke around and laugh all the time, which is amazing. He presents this kind of dark energy in pictures or in his work, but he's hilarious. We just have a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed myself. Yeah,
that's great. I want to come back to Dark Knight. Tell us though, the pieces that are at the gallery. What kind of art can we expect?
There's probably about 15 pages that Frank and I did on Daredevil. A lot of covers that I've done. There's no sequential stuff. Well, maybe 3 pages. Some inking that I've done over people, some penciling that I've done, some inking that I've done over myself. End of Days, the Daredevil project that we did with Brian Michael Bendis and David Mack and Bill Sienkiewicz, which I really has a soft spot in my heart. A couple of covers from Gothic, this project I did with Grant Morrison, thanks, which I thought was amazing, and a privilege really to work with Grant. So a whole spectrum, people that I've inked, projects that I've penciled and other people have inked, projects that I've penciled and inked myself. It really runs the gamut. So I'm happy about that.
That's great, man. I want to ask you about some of your past collaborations and also your own penciling. I had forgotten as I was doing my research. Am I right? Did you draw for Legends of the Dark Knight the Venom storyline with Denny O'Neil? Is that correct?
No, I don't think so, John.
I beg your pardon. All right, you see,
Yeah,
once
no,
again,
it's okay. I think that was who did that? Was that Jose Luis Garcia Lopez? It might have
it
been.
could very well have been.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
well then, but am I right? Did you work with Denny on Daredevil?
I worked with Denny on Daredevil and also on the Legends of the Dark Knight. That was was it? I think it was it serialized Gothic? It was serialized. The Grant Morrison story. So I was in Legends of the Dark Knight. But Denny, of course, was the editor on a Daredevil, and I miss him.
Yeah.
He was a really yeah. There's a handful of people that are no longer with us that I really miss. Archie Goodwin, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a genius. But anyways, yeah, Denny was the editor at when we were doing Daredevil.
Okay. Well, and also then let's get into well, first regarding Daredevil, when you worked with Frank on Daredevil, obviously. When did you see the Will Eisner influence on what Frank was trying to do? How early in your collaboration did you see that Eisner influence?
Frank and I both lived in New York at that time, and I think in the middle of Daredevil, he moved to LA. But we would sit and discuss things and talk about what we're doing or what we're trying to accomplish. There was one issue where we deliberately used Will Eisner as a template, and that was the issue. The title of it, I think, was Guts, and it was a story about Foggy Nelson in a trench coat, which is very, very Will Eisner. And we lifted a couple of things. Frank lifted a couple of things from the storytelling, the Will Eisner's library of storytelling. But yeah, Eisner was both a influence on me individually, of course, and on Frank. Um, Perhaps even more so than me, because Frank knew Will Eisner, got to talk to him and trade, war stories. Um, so yeah, we were very influenced by Eisner. It's a funny thing. People always ask, who are your influences? And it would not be incorrect to say everybody. But that's not a satisfying answer, and I get that. But truly, as what I think I'm a creative person, and so when I look at anything, whether it's film or art or an article or a picture, I'll take it with me. I sort of absorb it in a lot of ways. So when I say everybody, I mean that, everybody.
Who were you reading as far as comics as a kid? What artists were you like keying into?
And this is definitely my influences are the people that I read when I was a kid, and it was Neil Adams, Dick Giordano, Tom Palmer, Wally Wood, Steve Ditko, and then I kind of branched out to like foreign artists and people more my contemporary. Um, but the guys that I read, when I was a kid, um, impacted me greatly. Of course, yeah.
Did you were you taught storytelling, or did it come intuitively by reading these guys and how they would set up a panel and a page?
The That's a great question, by the way. I the I When I started teaching, which was around 90 or 91, I think, maybe 91. I ran through everything that I knew about art and storytelling in two classes. And I realized that standing in front of a bunch of kids who were hungry for information, they're not going to be happy with, two classes. So I literally went back to ground zero and read and studied and talked to a lot of people and tried to figure out what storytelling was about. Wow, I really do have a cold. And I devised or created this syllabus, a curriculum for the kids, and it took a couple of years, but I realized that in the development of those lessons, that all visual storytelling sort of comes to the same point, and that point is that there are certain rules and certain theories that are universal. The rules of composition are inflexible. You have a space, you have a defined space, whether it's a panel or a movie screen, and you have to fill it up in a organized, effective way. And those rules of composition are there to help you. And they are what they are. There's no getting around it. Or perspective. Perspective is what it is. You're not going to change that. The ability to create depth through perspective is biblical. You can't change that. It is what it is. So there's a part of being creative that certainly allows the creators to bend and play with those rules. But ultimately, when you design a page, there's only X amount of options, or panel. There's only X amount of ways you can compose a panel. And I'll give you an example. If you have a panel that's a rectangle, you can put one shape into that rectangle and not be wrong because it's only one shape. But if you put two shapes into it, then there's a relationship and there's a competition and there's a battle for supremacy or dominance, and you have to know what you're doing. You have to make a decision which shape is bigger, because that shape, the bigger shape, has meaning. The smaller shape also has meaning. So what are you trying to say? And if I may say, my approach to drawing and illustrating and storytelling is that I definitely try to introduce or contribute some piece of information that is not in the text, so that it's purely visual. And that could be acting, that could be how the characters move, that could be where they are placed within the panel. The bigger shape is the more dominant element in the panel. So it's a storytelling requires thought, and I think it's important for young storytellers to understand that nothing is arbitrary. It's all deliberate. It's all thought out, and within that parameter, you are allowed to play, and that's an amazing experience, I think.
With that in mind, tell me about the design of Dark Knight Returns, because there were a lot of bold visual choices that happened. And by that time, again, you and Frank had, cut your teeth doing Daredevil and perhaps other things. But I think of the panels with the news bulletins were, and I don't, it's so funny. I think too of guys like Mike Oming with Powers and stuff. I think taking a cue from you, what you guys did in the '80s. But tell me about some of those choices as far as the storytelling goes.
Well, I think that the in terms of how I feel about what Frank did, laying out the pages, roughly it was a 16 panel grid. And that was sort of the basic template for the page. And so sometimes there'd be 13 panels, sometimes there'd be 14 panels, and most of them were the same size, rather small, like the panel that you're referring to. And then there'd be a little bit of a larger, kind of a punch to the panel, to the page rather. I think that one of the most important things that storytellers need to consider is contrast and the power of contrast, the efficacy of constructing putting um, a boring scene like an office scene or a romance scene next to a car chase, and then going back again to something that's a little bit more quiet. So the contrast is the thing that keeps the story from being monotonous. It would be like if you colored the whole comic book blue. That's not going to work, because after a while the reader just tunes out. It's not interesting. So you need that contrast between black and white, big shapes, little shapes, big panels, little panels. So that's what Frank was doing in designing the page, because there'd be a rhythm to it, a very specific rhythm that would ultimately have a larger panel, oftentimes pop out of the 16 panels, smaller panels grid that he was establishing from the very first page, by the way. So that's a storytelling bit where you're using the power of contrast to grab the reader's eye and to keep them interested in the story. And then, of course, the big page splashes, which were so memorable and notable. Part of the reason why they were so memorable is because of the specific image that Frank created, but also because they were contrasted with the pages of 16 panel grids before and after. So there's a constant back and forth. There's a constant dialogue happening between the pages. Can I bore you with a story?
You're not going to bore me. Feel free.
I had in my apartment, there's a door, and you come into the door, and there's a wall on the left, and there's a wall on the right. And at one point, I put a large bookcase on the left and a large bookcase on the right. So they were really close to each other. And my mom came in one day, and I said to her, "What do you think of this arrangement of having, the bookcases be like this, with the door in the middle?" And she said, "I like it." And I was so curious because I wanted to hear why she liked it. And she said the most brilliant thing that I think she's ever said. She said, "I like it because they talk to each other." And I thought, my God, this is a woman who did not, from the old country, get out of high school, but it was a brilliant thing to say, and she was right. And so when we do a page or when we do a panel, things talk to each other.
Interesting. Am I hurting you, Klaus? I feel bad with your cough. I hope.
I'm dying.
Yeah, I know. I'm
dying.
Honestly, because I really had so many questions, and I have more, but also like I want you to I don't want to hurt you today.
Is there a way that you can pause and I'll get a glass of water or something?
Oh, of course, right now. We're pre-recording. Yeah, please.
I'll be right back.
Absolutely, man.
Lord Almighty.
I honestly, Klaus, I just got over the worst cough and cold in the world. My voice was a quarter of what it is now. And everyone that was newsworthy to talk to was like, "Yeah, I could talk to you now." So I had Brad Meltzer talk about Spider-Man, Superman. I had Mark Waid do the same. Bob Rozakis talked about the DC implosion for me. A lot of they were covered by some of the nerd news websites. So believe me, I understand. but I had to motor through it, So I was okay. If we could keep talking,
Well, you have to motor through it, right?
sure.
And that's you don't really have a lot of choice. But yeah, for some reason this cold is really lingering. And
I do
all right,
understand, truly.
give me 1 second.
Yeah, take your time, Sip.
Let's see if that. Oh, can you hang on? I'll get a cough drop.
Absolutely. Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
cough.
Do it. Make yourself comfortable, Klaus. We got plenty of time. Don't worry about it.
I appreciate it, John. I really do. Thank you.
Nope, no problem.
The cough drop. I got.
All good, man.
I really appreciate it, John.
Sure. 100%.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, ready to rock and roll.
All right, beautiful. Well,
Thank you.
and I appreciate what you're saying about the contrast of the panels and from panel to panel and 16 panels to the big splash pages and things. But also, it felt like as the issues progressed, there was almost this, and I know, as you just said, everything is conscious, but a devolution. The first issue and even the second issue, it looked traditional as far as it just looked like kind of a uniform comic book thing. But as the story got crazier, it felt like the art got a little crazier and a little looser. So can you talk about that in terms of like how you and Frank discussed it and how you approached inking it?
We had many discussions about how to approach it through inking. And I think what happened, you're absolutely right that there was an evolution in terms of how I approached it. I tried to, just as an aside, that scene in the mosh pit between the mutant and Batman. I tried very deliberately to ink Batman in one way and then the mutant in another way. I don't know if it came across, but a lot of what we see is subconscious anyways. But it was very, thought out. And I think that the third issue started to become a little bit more loose and chaotic. And then by the time we got to the fourth one, I know that I was very, very conscious about tightening up my inks in the fourth one, because it seemed to me that it was, the conclusion. Well, it was the conclusion of the story. So again, we're talking about, rhythm and some way to organize your approach. You have to, pencilers, inkers, especially in sequential narrative, you have to think of some way to organize your approach to the project or to the page or to the pages. And that is what I was thinking about. I was thinking about the conclusion needs to be more pristine and more normal. Because by the time we got to the end of that story on the last couple of pages, Batman has been renewed and he has been rejuvenated, and he came up with a plan, which was to create this group of characters who were going to be the next generation of superheroes. And that did not require a chaotic approach. That required, I think, very organized, very deliberate, very strong kind of approach to the inking. And there is definitely ways to ink that would, and to pencil, that would create chaos versus organization, or and I think the thing that I found out about Dark Knight, I had the opportunity to reread it, when we started Master Race. And I was amazed at how good it really was. I mean, Frank really did an outstanding job. But what happened in the process of me rereading it, I was impressed with the fact that there were new things to discover in the book, and that it didn't seem like it was at all stale or rehashed. It still seemed original. It seemed inventive. It seemed new to me, and that's an accomplishment that proves its merit, among other things, by the way. But it's certainly that's really hard to do, and Frank was at the top of his game. There's no doubt about that.
And how about working with Lynn? And I hope I'm saying your last name right. Varley?
Varley,
Varley,
yeah.
okay. And yeah, I mean, obviously, and I know she and Frank had the relationship and everything, but as far as from inking the color and everything, how did you work with Lynn?
The only thing that only kind of contact we had was I think it was before Dark Knight, because Frank was in the studio. I think it was on 28th Street or 29th Street, but he was in the studio with Walter Simonson and Bill Sienkiewicz, and then a rotating fourth person. And I remember sitting on the couch in the studio and talking to Lynn, and we were talking about color. So in a non-specific way. So that was the only contact that I had with her. I don't know if she, took what we were talking about and applied it to Dark Knight. But I think that she did a great job. It's not an easy book to color. There are ways of coloring it where you could destroy the smaller panels, and she did not. It was, what she did was very clear, and it was very precise, and I definitely appreciated that. Yeah.
I remember, and again, I was buying it when it was coming out. First of all, I should say, when Frank did the interview in Rolling Stone,
Well, yeah.
I was in college, so it was such a great wake up call of because people our age, Klaus, we were into comics, and then we were teenagers and we start dating, and we don't have the disposable income we had for comics. And I mean, I read this article in Rolling Stone, and I'm like, well, I love Batman, and this sounds amazing. So I'm
Yeah.
back, I'm in. And then, so the prestige format was really impressive. And I don't know, I want you to talk to that. But also, I do remember, sadly, that there was that lull between issues 2 and 3, and then even 3 and 4. Can you speak to what happened from a production standpoint, and yeah, just how because again, no one had seen anything like what you guys were doing back then. You know that, but
It was. Yeah. Go
yeah.
ahead, John. Go.
No, I was just going to say that I think now so many generations since have read the story as a collected piece. They don't realize how really groundbreaking it was.
It absolutely was, and I think that part of that groundbreaking kind of experience was at least partly due to the delay between 2 and 3 or 3 and 4. It got so um, out of control, and it got so big that everyone associated with the book, including myself and DC in general, were dealing with a animal that they had never dealt with before. Um, the story that I've heard over and over is that when the first book came out, the retailers were barraging DC with telephone calls, send us more copies. And DC was not used to anything like that. And as a matter of fact, I believe I was told this, that Dark Knight 1 was the first comic book that went to a second printing. And so, second printings are like, a dime a dozen these days.
Sure.
But you're right in saying that this was a very unique experience. And, not only was Frank doing interviews in Rolling Stone, but, he was on the cover of Time magazine and, Wall Street Journal. I mean, I'm exaggerating a bit, but not by much. And that takes time out of your daily schedule where you should be writing or drawing and I felt I think I was in San Diego around that time at the San Diego Con, and I think that's true, by the way, but I could feel the air shift, literally I could feel the air shift uh, from the audience or from my experience with fans. Things just changed. Um, it was very heady. It was very like, really, what's going on here? I'm still the same person that I was, 2 months ago, but apparently not. And so that was, in its own way, interesting. But I was young. I can only speak for myself. I was young, and it made me a little self-conscious.
I wondered that, absolutely. And again,
Yeah,
with that added pressure and expectation from the audience and
yeah.
everything. Well, I can honestly say you guys delivered. So that's the good news. It was worth the
Thank you.
wait. It
Thanks.
absolutely was
Thanks.
worth the
No,
wait.
I
Certainly.
appreciate that. Yeah, thanks. Thanks.
What about I moving on to other projects? Tell me about working with John Buscema and everything on Punisher.
John John Buscema is an amazing artist. I'm surprised at how much work I did do with John. Um, Apparently, I did, and I see this because that people come to me at conventions with these books. I did a lot of Conan, black and white Conan, and it was any artist or any project that allowed me to contribute. I'm there for that. Gil Kane, didn't spot blacks. A lot of John Buscema was also didn't spot blacks. They were, breakdowns or shakedowns, whatever you want to call them, and was a delight. I loved working in black and white because I could use zipatone and wash and texture, till the cows come home, and nobody could say anything. There's no color going on top of it. Um, well, John Buscema is amazing. John Romita Jr. On The Punisher is incredible. John and I are doing a project with Mark Miller right now called Psychic Sam. I think they're
Oh,
doing it
Klaus,
through.
yeah, I didn't know you were. I didn't know you were inking that. I've talked to John and Mark about Psychic Sam, so that's
You mean
fantastic.
to tell me they didn't mention my name?
They
Those
probably
sons
did,
of
and again,
bitches.
it's it was last year, so it was several dozen
Oh, it
interviews
might it
ago.
might even have been before I got onto the book. That could be, yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
as a tracer, I'm used to it, so it's fine. Thanks,
Well,
guys.
well, but honestly, I am curious about the different artists that you've drawn that you've inked because it really is like how much like you were just saying about the blacks and the things that John and Gil didn't give you and things, but you almost I what is your philosophy as far as inking because you kind of have to bring out the voice of the penciler and enhance what they do and really, I mean, I can't think of two more different artists, three more different artists than Buscema, Gil Kane, and Johnny. So
And I would
and
even throw
Frank.
in Sal Buscema,
Well, certainly.
because
Wow, I didn't
yeah,
realize you inked. Yeah, if you inked Sal as well, sure.
Sal. I kind of thought that when Sal and I were doing Defenders, which was great fun, that was early on in my career. And again, Sal would do breakdowns, and he would do it in blue pencil,
Okay.
as opposed to John would use, gray lead pencil, as would Gil. But since that was so early in my career, I was allowed to contribute and add blacks and texture and zipatone. And then I started coloring Sal Buscema, the Defender stuff. And it was just great fun. So just in terms of, my own personal growth or evolution or experience, I got better, working with these guys. Um, they're incredibly talented and they knew so much more than I did at the time. Um, so it was a learning. It was truly a really good school for me. I owe them a lot. It wasn't just that I was influenced by them, like Gil Kane or John Buscema, as a kid, or Tom Palmer, but I got to work with these people, and you know, how lucky can you get, really?
Did Tom, as another inker, did he give you specific direction, or did you learn by again example?
Example, yeah. Tom was very. We talked about art, and Tom was incredibly well schooled in a traditional way. He knew color theory. He knew how to use gouache and mix paints, and he was a real technically proficient. Um I love Tom. I treasure our friendship and his sense of humor. He used to tell me that I was the best Gene Colan inker, and I knew he was lying because there was nobody who could ink Gene Colan better than Tom, and frankly, that also goes applies to John Buscema. The Avengers run that those two did together. So he would rip me and say I was the best, but he was unrelenting in teasing me, which was kind of fun. I know he was bullshitting me.
We talked earlier about you teaching. Do you still do the chalk talks? Because I know for a while, certain artists and certain writers would gather all the young creators and give them a good sit down and in a kind of almost classroom kind of auditorium thing. I envision you like a, Professor Kingsfield kind of going through this stuff.
I have done, when I was at in LA for the Comics Pro thing, I did a quick hour and a half class for DC, and I've stopped teaching at to at in college, but I very much like to hop around a little bit and get my feet wet again, in terms of teaching or just talking about what storytelling is about. So through the years, I've managed to do some of these classes in Savannah or in Europe or in New York or LA, Denver. I think I did a class, and it's wonderful to be able to see what's on the mind of young artists and young creative people. I almost feel like I've learned as much from them as I try to teach them. Um, but I will say that the last couple of years, the post-COVID years, something happened with the kids, and it became really tough. It became really difficult. I don't know if it was social media. I mean, a lot of people blame, social media for everything. I don't know if it was COVID and the frustration that everybody felt about, learning on Zoom or, teaching on Zoom, which was absolutely hellacious. Um, so I stopped. I have to admit, I stopped enjoying it after COVID. I tried to, but I wasn't able to really make it work anymore. Yeah, which is, maybe my time was just up. You know.
Well, I'm glad you at least did it at Comics Pro, and that occasionally the
Yeah,
current live situation will approach it.
that's
So
right. And
Actually,
and I was just going to say, and at in LA at the Comics Pro thing, I enjoyed it, and I thought, I kind of missed this. I would like to do it, periodically at least. Um, but I think you know, it's we live in a tough world. The especially the younger generation is so affected by uh, the economy and politics and social media, and it's rough. I have a lot of sympathy for the kids coming up today.
I understand. No, there's a lot of I think kids are they're not sure what direction to go into, and society isn't helping. I think you're right about that.
That's right, and we are, and they are especially bombarded with just everything, and it's unrelenting.
Agreed.
Um, I still yell at people when they're on their cell phone in the elevator, so that shows you where where I'm coming from.
No, I understand, man. I hear you. It's hard to go to a movie. It's hard to go to a movie and watch
It
everybody with
is.
their devices out. So I understand.
It is. I
Yeah.
agree with you. Taking pictures, even that's annoying, because the light goes on,
Yeah. Well,
Okay. It is. It is what it is.
well, regarding John Romita Jr., what a great collaboration, and truly Spider-Man, Daredevil. I love Frankencastle. Honestly, I appreciated the weirdness of what Rick was trying to do, Remender, in
Yeah.
that story. And
Yeah.
and I know that's kind of one of those ones where it's like either people that loved it or really had issues with it, and I can appreciate because it isn't a traditional Punisher
Mhm.
story. But yeah, but tell me about the collaboration with Johnny, because also the gray area. I didn't remember that. Did you work with him on the gray area as
I
well?
did. Yeah, I did. Yeah. And
Yeah,
there was supposed to be another installment. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but we just never got to it. So that was that. I wouldn't say that it's completely dead either, because John always works on, like, 17 different things at the same time. But working with John is it's great. I can't say anything bad about that. Where I'd like to think of us as we are pals or buds. He lives in Texas now. I still live in New York, but working with him on Psychic Sam or anything
yeah.
else for that matter is really a treat. Yeah, he's extraordinarily good. Yeah.
Are there, and mentioning the gray area and Psychic Sam, are there any creator owned ideas that you would like to pursue yourself individually?
I have a creator-owned project that I worked on a couple of years ago called Sacred Creatures, and with my collaborator, it was at Image, and it did okay. My collaborator is Pablo Ramundi, who just came out with a project called Ghost Box at Comixology,
Hmm.
which was really good. Written by Mike Carey. I think it was 5 or 6 issues. It was really good. I recommend it. Um, and so Pablo and I wrote and drew Sacred Creatures. He draws the contemporary scenes, and I draw the ancient past scenes. It's about the seven deadly sins and the virtues and their mythology, and how they basically toyed with humanity. It's very interesting. It's very we definitely take our time telling the story, which is an interesting way of approaching it. So we're doing a sequel, and we're doing a sequel to that. It'll be published by Mad Cave. You know that company? Yeah,
I
they're doing
do.
some really nice work. Yeah, and we're just at the stage right now where next week we're going to figure out the publishing schedule, but we're way ahead at this point. So I'm happy about that, and I think it's some of the best work I've done. It's not necessarily capes and cowls kind of stuff, but it's I love drawing it, and I can say this because you can't say this about every project you do. I'm happy with what I'm doing, and that's a good place to be, I think. Yeah. And then there's I love doing short stories. By the way, just to keep on blabbing. I love doing short stories. I love writing short stories. I think that the first short story that I wrote and drew was Good Evening Midnight, the black and white Batman, way
Oh,
back.
sure. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Wow.
have the poster hanging up right here to my left. Um, so that was a while back. It was what, 25, 30 years ago, maybe somewhere around there. Um, and I've written a couple of short stories since then. But I like the short story form. It prevents you from getting bored. By page 40, right? You're like that. You're dying at page 40, right?
Well, and tell me, because I'm so glad you reminded me of End of Days, working with Bendis and Sienkiewicz and everything too, because that's an interesting combination. You and Bill. Tell me about that.
It's I was so lucky to be able to talk Bill into doing, I think it was 7 or 8 issues, and he did every damn one of them, and brilliant work. Um, he's an interesting person to work with. On the one hand, I thought that what he did, without changing the pencils, he somehow contributed his own approach or his own style. And then there were panels where I could, and I loved, analyzing his work when it started coming in, where if he would lose the idea behind the panel or the face, let's say the face, he would just keep on going. As opposed to me, I would white it out or do a paste up and do a fix it somehow. He's fearless. He just keeps right on going, and eventually something happens where he gets it back, and I find that miraculous, really. Um, I would kill to literally I would kill to work with him again. He's so good.
That's interesting too, that you were the penciler and he was the inker. How often have you dealt with other inkers doing your stuff?
A handful of times. I know what's interesting about Bill and our working relationship is that, of course, I inked him on Moon Knight, and then he inked me on End of Days. Sal Buscema inked me on a Batman job, one shot. I think it was an annual. So I inked Sal, and then he inked me. And Tom Palmer inked an issue of Wolverine that I penciled. And of course, I never got to ink Tom, but the fact that he was, known as the premier inker at that moment uh, was amazing. Tony DeZuniga inked me
Oh,
on a
wow.
bat. Yeah, it's odd. Yeah, I don't expect anybody to remember every single thing I've done. So, um, the fact that Tony DeZuniga, that truly is a trivia question.
I understand. Absolutely, man.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I
yeah.
had I had no idea that it was that one of those kind of crusty bunker kind of situations that it had to get done, or was he always going to
No,
be the
no,
anchor?
no.
Okay.
He was the anchor, and it was a Batman, Talia al Ghul story, I think. I did the cover. I think Denny O'Neil wrote it, as a matter of fact. I think that's right.
All right, and Klaus, again, I hope my memory is right. Death and the Maidens with Rucka. Did you do that one as well?
I did, yeah.
Okay, that's a great one of
I
yeah, that's a
appreciate that. Yeah,
great
that
run.
was.
Absolutely. Great story.
I agree. Greg is an amazing writer. He's another one that I would love to work with again. Um, yeah, I've worked with, in terms of, I had to supply a bio to the Philippe Le Bon gallery, for their promotional stuff.
Yeah.
And I realized that I've worked with really good writers. I've worked with Alan Moore. I worked with Greg Rucka. I worked with Denny O'Neil, Matt Kint. I love his work,
That's
and
great.
we're trying to get a project together, a creator-owned project. But really, amazing writers. I've been very lucky that way.
Remind me of what you did with Alan.
I did a two-part Green Arrow backup story. So each one was, I think, 8 pages, maybe 10 pages, really early in his career. Um, yeah, very early. Maybe before Watchmen. I think it was before Watchmen. Um, and it was his classic script, with he's describing one panel and it's 6 pages long, right? Uh, it's okay, Alan. I get it. Please do your thing. You be you, right? I'm okay with that.
And mentioning what you're doing now with the Mad Cave project and everything is are there other genres? Have you ever done westerns, Klaus?
No, not really. I think I inked Mike Zeck on a two-parter Green Lantern Atom. That was part of a six-part story where Scott Koblish penciled 2 issues, Mike Zeck penciled 2 issues, and Gil Kane penciled the last 2 issues. And it was great to, ink all 3 artists. And the Mike Zeck one was a Western, took place in that time period. And beautiful, by the way. Mike Zeck, inking Mike Zeck it was like eating ice cream. It was just wonderful. Yeah. But I would like to. Sacred Creatures is a bit of fantasy, and I would like to do more of that. I really enjoyed uh, the different time periods and the different covers that I wound up doing. So it was a lot of fun, and I want to do a little bit more fantasy. I did a cover for Ignition Press recently for one of their new books,
Yes.
and I talked to Jamie Rich, and I said, Jamie, let me do a fantasy cover. Let me try something a little different. Uh, so well, I'm getting there.
Well, I think as readers as well, we still love superheroes, but yeah, I know as a reader, my taste has broadened, and I do
Sure,
seek out the other
that's
genres and
right.
everything. So I can only imagine as an artist that when you're living with these pages every day, that it would be nice to get a change of
That
pace like that.
that's right. It's the contrast that I was speaking about earlier. And I love. I've always wanted to do a Silver Surfer project,
Oh, that'd be great.
because
Yeah.
I think I'd do a kick-ass job. It's sci-fi, it's space, it's kind of technology and the future and whatever we can come up with. Um, yeah, so I'm still trying to figure how to make those kind of genres happen for me. Yeah.
That's great. Regarding the miniseries you just talked about with Zach and Kane and I forget who the first artist was.
Scott Koblish.
Scott Koblish. Thank you. Yeah. So is it your job to keep a uniform look as the artists change, or how did you approach that as far as the different
I,
artists that you were dealing with?
I think that was the intent from editorial, certainly. And I mean, all 3 artists are very different,
Yeah.
and you can only um, go so far in trying to put all of the 3 together. Um, so I don't think I overdid, trying to keep it uniform, because all 3 artists have their own distinct and valuable style. Uh, but that certainly was my job when I was inking Daredevil, even before Frank came on. I've been inking Daredevil for I forget how long, but it was a while. And as you know the story, it was bi-monthly. Nobody cared about the book, and it was going to be canceled. So they would throw people onto the book in terms of pencilers, and I got to ink, Bob Brown and Carmine Infantino and Gil Kane and Gene Colan, and they would switch every month or every 2 months, and it was my job to make sure that Matt Murdock looked the same. That was the
Sure.
explicit assignment. Here, Klaus, fix it up, make it look the same. So what that came down to, by the way, John, was just simply that I bought a pair of glasses, and I used that as a template for Matt Murdock's glasses, and that was how I kept Matt Murdock the same, and make sure his hair was parted on the correct side, that kind of thing. It was fun because nobody, was looking over my shoulder. There was a lot of freedom.
Were there times when you were in that situation and the editor is like, keep it consistent? Did you ever have to have the conversation with the penciler and say, hey, listen, I might have to alter a little bit, to satisfy what editorial is looking for? Or was it just understood by all parties that that was the job?
I think that it was understood, and as the book became more popular, with Frank penciling and writing the story, the one thing that the companies, all the publishers understand is success. And so when you're on a book and the sales are climbing, they don't mess with you. They let you keep on climbing, because they don't want to, inhibit that in any way. So we were very lucky, Frank and I, in terms of, moving the book forward a little bit in terms of sales or visibility. And editorial was very, very accommodating. Yeah. I think they recognized they had something.
Yeah, and thank God they
Yeah.
did. And again, all you guys did was flourish from it.
Yeah.
Did again, cause given the years that you've been part of the business, you've seen so many changes, and my God, both economically, but also the way the finished product is received. And I remember in the 90s when it really was artist heavy times, and it really felt like art was kind of up here and story was down here, writing was down here. And now it seems like it's kind of equalized. Tell me, as someone that's in the midst of it, how you perceive, the combination of writing and art.
You are insightful to perceive that and to see that. Something shifted around the year 2000. That's I think of it as shifting in that time. And what happened was the story became more important than the art, and I disagree with that. What happened as a result? Sorry, what happened as a result? We have created several generations at this point, at least two since the year 2000, of artists who cannot tell a story without directions from the writer. Now, that doesn't apply to everyone. There are obviously people who can do that. But the number of artists who cannot do that, make decisions on their own, is a bit alarming. Because essentially it is still a visual medium.
Yeah.
And, the old trope is that if you take the words out of a comic book, it's still a comic book. And, because you can follow the art. But if you take the art out of a comic book, it ain't no comic book. And so I rely on that. That gives me a little bit of comfort to perhaps think that I may have a point here about the value of storytelling and visual storytelling, and that, of course, the story and the writing is important. There's no doubt about it. But I don't understand why, someone has to say, okay, we're writing is more important, and the art is going to take directions from the writer. Most writers, and I mean this in a loving way, most writers don't really have a good visual sense. Grant Morrison does, people like that certainly do, but most writers do not. And I don't hold that against them. I don't expect it from them. I've spent my entire life trying to figure out what visual storytelling is about. And they've spent their entire life trying to figure out what, literary influences they have and what writing is about. So the collaboration is important and significant and worth noting. But I would like to get back to a time when I can trust or feel confident that the artist knows how to lay out a page without directions from either the editor or the writer. It puzzles me.
Understood. I know. We'll wrap up, Klaus. I'll let you rest your voice, but
Thanks, John.
Well, we could pick it up later in the year or something if when the Mad Cave thing comes out. But I do want people to know we were talking off the air. You're going to be at C2E2 in a couple of weeks here in
Yes,
Chicago.
that's my first con for the season. Yeah, I look forward to it.
Excellent.
Chicago is a lot of fun.
How long is the gallery show going? And again, remind people in Chelsea which museum they can go to and how long the gallery showing's happening.
It's at Philippe Labaune, Labaune. I think the address is 354 West 24th Street. It's in Chelsea, as you mentioned, in Manhattan. And it'll be there till April 11th. And I'll be floating around there occasionally. So you may get lucky or unlucky, depending on your point of view. But I certainly intend to promote it as much as I can. And, I'll be there at least once or twice a week to welcome anybody that's interested in visual storytelling. Yeah.
Any other events regarding the 40th anniversary of Dark Knight that you'll be involved in this year?
We are planning stuff, and it will be a year-long celebration, and I'm okay with that. We are. I guess I can say this. I don't know what the big deal is, but I'm penciling a cover that Frank is going to ink, and Frank's penciling a cover that I'm going to ink. So Frank has never inked me. And we've been talking. Yeah, we've been talking about. I agree. We've been talking about it for a long time, and this is a perfect opportunity to do that. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Are those covers for new collections of the story?
They're for something.
All right, fair enough.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's all. There's so much. I think so much product coming out, and I'm happy about that. But where it's going to be slotted, I'm not exactly sure. Yeah.
Well, again, you guys deserve the victory lap.
Thanks.
And
Thanks, John.
100%. And regardless, glad you're still out there. Glad we've got new stuff to get excited about from you.
Thanks, John.
Coming up as well. So yes, we'll continue this conversation at a better time for both of our voices. But...
I appreciate your patience. I really do. But thanks, John. I'm happy to talk to you. I'm happy to see you, and we'll do it again soon.